America is a free country. I have a very controversial belief, and that is I don't think racism exists. Sure, there's a lot of anti-white racism, and sure, there's some redneck who said the N-word last year. But as far as the ups and downs and affirmative action, it's all, in 2018, a pretty much level playing field. Yes, America has a dark past of the treatment of the Indians, dark past treatments of blacks, but as Pat Buchanan says, we didn't start slavery, we ended it. So why then are black people doing badly? Why do other immigrants do well? If America's racist, then wouldn't all non-whites be doing badly? Why are Asians doing so well? Well, I'm happy to tell you the answer to all of those questions. Blacks are doing badly, generally, in America because of welfare. The state, and this goes back to the New Deal, the state decided that it would take over the family, the black family, the poor family, and it incentivized single moms. So she kicks her baby daddy out. That shatters the family. Now we have these kids with idle hands who get into trouble, get into drug dealing, get into crime. They go to jail. They don't have now that dad is in prison, and we have an entire culture without dads. 3 in 4 black children are born out of wedlock. In areas here in New York and the Bronx, it can go up to 80%, especially with Puerto Ricans on third-generation welfare. That is why black people are doing badly. And to say that that is an example of racism is to put the carriage before the horse. You know, black people back in the 50s and 60s, before welfare was so popular, they committed crimes about the same that white people committed crimes. So it's not an inherent black thing to end up in prison, but it's also not racism. America's not racist. And I love using the example of Asians because these people who bitch about racism all the time are left having to explain it. Like, if America's so racist and there's so much white privilege, why are whites something like 6th as far as successful ethnic groups? I believe they're below not African Americans, but American Africans. We got Lebanese Americans at the top. I believe Indian Americans, not feather, but dot. I believe Indian Americans are the most successful ethnic group in this country. So that kind of kills the narrative. And watching these people twist themselves into a pretzel trying to explain that is a ton of fun. I remember it happened, I first saw it a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, where they said, racism is bad. We can't have racism anymore. And then they started analyzing it and going on social media, and they realized, wait a minute, it seems like Asians and blacks and Indians and Hispanics, they're the ones saying the most racist stuff. I gotta recalibrate this. So then they changed it. And then it wasn't, well, racism isn't bad. Racism from whites is bad. When you hear racist statements from other people, they don't matter because they don't have power. So they're just lashing out at a system that hurts them. But they're allowed to be racist. In fact, there's no such thing as racism coming from blacks. It can only come from whites. And you go, wow, that's quite a pretzel. Let me hear you explain successful Asians, who, by the way, are way more successful than whites. And I assume racists don't like Asians. Don't they call them like chinks and stuff? Let's see what she's got to say about this. Patronizing term.
From books like Crazy Rich Asians to characters like London Tipton from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, the archetype of the super wealthy, educated Asian American is a common one.
Pause.
And it didn't come out of thin air.
Did you see that? Mindy Kaling is technically Indian. That's sort of in Asia. So now her and the guy from Humar and Kome, or whatever it's called, where they go to White Castle, those are all people who are constantly portrayed as rich people. So I believe she's going to do that whole see it to be it thing and claim that Asians are rich because they're portrayed as rich on TV. Lady, you cannot turn on the TV or a movie without seeing a black brain surgeon. Every head of surgery in every show is a black dude. And I don't believe that works. I don't believe Ben Carson is a brain surgeon because he saw it on TV. The whole idea of see it to be it is a myth. The whole idea that we need role models on TV, people don't take TV that seriously. I don't know why you're putting all your eggs in such an irrelevant basket. All right, go ahead. Mindy Kaling?
Asian
She's
Americans
Chinese
do
now?
earn more than white Americans on average. But
Why are
what
they
the data
combining
rarely
Indians and
shows
Asians?
that
What is this,
economic
Britain?
inequality is a huge problem in the Asian American community. And to help me talk about it, I've enlisted the help of my friend Lily Dew.
Thanks, Francesca. Contrary to what you might believe, not every Asian American is spending their days sipping caviar and eating
Just
champagne.
pause.
2004.
Who is this for? Honestly, my son is 5. I think this is about his pace. Hey, Johnny, not every Chinese person is rich. Oh, okay. I remember when I was about 7, I remember this guy told me, you know, most midgets are rich. And I said, really? Why? And he goes, because of movies like Time Bandits and stuff. I believed that for a long time. I wish I had seen this video to tell me, not all midgets are rich. Thanks, lady. And by the way, as far as ethnic groups in America, yes, they're slaying. They are slaying whites. So why are you trying to debunk that fact? It's just a fact. Sorry. Asian Americans make more than white Americans. Go ahead.
2014 study found that while Asian Americans generally earn more than white people, they also have a much higher rate of poverty. Plus the "what about Asians?" I guess you'll call it an argument, hides huge disparities amongst different Asian ethnic groups. Indian Americans earn twice the national average in median income, while Vietnamese, Cambodians, and Bangladeshi families are at the very bottom of the list. So this begs the question, if not all Asian Americans are making it rain and many are extremely far from it, where did this stereotype come from?
Just stop.
Well, like most bullshit.
Are you following this? Asians as a group make much more than all other ethnic groups. In fact, I'd love to see the ones you'd have to combine to get up to an Asian salary. But this woman says, yeah, what about really terribly poor shithole countries like Cambodia? They don't make as much as Japanese. Yeah? Just because you found someone at the bottom of the Asian list doesn't mean that Asians in general aren't rich. And then your argument is not all Chinese people are rich? This is juvenile. You don't understand anecdotal evidence. You don't understand patterns. It used to be a joke where we'd say political correctness is just the war on noticing patterns. But now, not noticing patterns has become part of your philosophy. You find some woman who's 50 who had a baby and you say, you can have a baby at any age. Well, yeah, it's technically possible to have a baby at any age, but when we're talking about 3.5 billion women, they tend to focus on the 25 to 35 range, and 30 is just like when we're starting to go brrr. Really? Well, I know a 7-year-old. Well, congratulations. Noticing that Asians have strong family values and education and work hard is used to criticize black people and call them lazy. What? It is. It's about power. Go ahead.
Used to ask harmful questions like, geez, if Asians can make it in America, why can't blank do it as well? But here's the thing. It wasn't hard work, education, or assimilation that helped some Asian Americans find more success than other people of color. It was opportunity brought on by, wait for it, less racism. New research has found that what actually helped Asian Americans was American society simply becoming a tiny bit less racist towards them. In 2016, researcher Nathaniel Hilger found that between 1940 and 1970, Asian Americans, regardless of education level, started being paid like white people.
What happened was that both college-educated Asians and Asian high school dropouts began to make the same as college-educated white.
This is insanity. The reason that Asians are doing well has nothing to do with hard work or family values or education. It's because I was less racist to them in the 70s. The proof? Well, they were making about the same money as whites. Therefore, people were less racist to them. No, they were working hard. That's why they made the same money as white people, because America isn't racist, especially capitalism. Capitalism just wants you to generate income for the company. If you do that, you're in. So to show them making the same money as whites doesn't mean that we were less racist towards them, you buffoon. It means that they were generating more income. We see this with the page gap where they go, women earn less than men, ergo sexism. No, women earn less than men, ergo women are coming in less. They're less ambitious. They're coming up with less innovative ideas. Sorry, ladies, you'd rather be home with your kids at her piano recital than you would staying all night at work. I like that, by the way. I want you to stay with the kids. I'm happy to do an all-nighter. I don't want women doing all-nighters, and they tend not to. That's why they earn less. Great book called Why Men Earn More. And he had to add the subhead, and what we can do to change it, so he didn't get in too much trouble. But he basically pointed out that when women don't have kids and they don't have families, like when they're young, they make more money than men. Then they tend to put family above work, and they end up making less money. That's clearly not proof that sexism is a problem. And to say Chinese people are doing well because we're less racist puts so much onus on racism. If I was black and everyone talked about how racism is crippling blacks and it's so evil, I would be embarrassed because you're making them sound totally weak. I'm fat and ugly, and I live in New York City where I get insulted and told to fuck off every city block. You know how many hours a night I spend crying about it? 0. Okay, maybe 5 minutes in the shower. Then I get it out of my system. But I'm not going to sit there and explain all my failures based on someone else's opinion of me. That's juvenile and weak. All right, go ahead.
Whites and white high school dropouts, which prior to that time period was not the case. Plus, in 1965, the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act eliminated a huge bias in favor of European immigrants and drove in a new group of highly selected, highly educated Asian immigrants. For example, 51% of Chinese immigrants to the U.S. are college graduates, compared to only 4% of adults in China. Now, you may be thinking, but Lily, what's wrong with believing all Asian Americans are hardworking, highly educated, and flush
No one
with
thinks
sweet,
that.
sweet cash? Isn't that a good thing? Well, no, not really. Believing all Asian Americans are rich is just as bad as believing that Dev Patel,
No one thinks all group of anything is anything.
are the same person.
That's a
They're
lie.
not. Well, certain stereotypes may not seem all that bad on the surface, but the rich Asian American myth actually erases the experiences of a large part of the Asian American community.
But it's a fact.
It allows people to ignore the economic
Just stop.
disparities faced by other groups.
I'm sorry, this is getting pedantic. I'm sorry to subject you to this. But no one thinks all of this is this. But we have noticed a pattern that Asian Americans generally tend to disproportionately make more loot. That's just a fact. You can find that. Go look up ethnic groups on Wikipedia and you'll see the most successful ones. And you, my dear, are at the top. No one takes that stereotype and enforces it on everything. I don't know where you got this idea that we notice that the Irish tend to get grumpy on whiskey, and we think 100% of Irish, no possible exceptions, get grumpy and violent when they have whiskey. What are you basing that on? For you to think that Chinese Americans are successful totally trivializes all poor Chinese people. You don't think we know that poor Chinese people exist? You don't think we've been to Chinatown and seen a giant barrel of frogs? Some woman with dirty feet sifting through them? We're aware of poor Chinese. Go ahead.
Vietnamese and Cambodians, plus lumping in all these different ethnicities into one broad
You're the
Asian
one who did that.
category and
You're the one who
focusing on
put Minda
averages
Kaling at the
masks
beginning.
wealth
Minda
disparities
Kaling.
between very different ethnic groups. Who doesn't love being erased? So with the help of the model minority myth, it becomes easy to ignore the fact that in New York City alone, more Asian Americans live below the poverty line than any other minority group at 27%.
Oh God, you fuckers are so bad at facts. Are they lying or are they lazy? That's one thing I'll never figure out about these shows, these little informative videos. 27% of Asians at NYC live below the poverty line because they're all new immigrants. Manhattan is presently being taken over by the Chinese. They are a wildly disproportionate number of the immigrants. We've got white flight in a lot of New York. We also have, I don't know, yellow in-flight. We have a massive amount of Chinese immigrants coming in. Everyone who has $50,000 cash in China, which out of 1 billion people tends to be quite a few, gets over here. Half the time it's loans, half the time they got to pay it back to snakeheads. So you have essentially Ellis Island in Manhattan, a Chinese Ellis Island, and it's full of new immigrants. These immigrants come here, work in Chinatown mostly. They've taken over the 5 Points, remember Bill the Butcher? All Chinatown, all the lower Manhattan is becoming Chinese. We only really have Wall Street left, and it's being pushed out by the yellow gentrification of New York. And then these people generate income, and they move out to Queens, they move out to the suburbs, they move out to Long Island. And that 27% is about to become middle class, and upper middle class. So you're taking a strange little sample of new immigrants and pretending that the stats on Asian Americans aren't true because you found some poor ones. I thought you Chinese people were supposed to be smart. Go ahead.
But they receive less than 1% in state funding. Because all Asians are doing
Because they're illegal,
fine.
you stupid
I'm fine.
bitch.
I'm great. Poor Asian Americans are being seriously overlooked when it comes to things like government funding and aid for seniors, which is a double tragedy since we all know that Asian grandmas are stylish as f***. Back to you, Francesca.
Look, we have to face the fact that all stereotypes are harmful, even the ones that seem good on the surface.
What if they're
because
true?
The rich Asian stereotype leads to a lack of visibility for the issues that poor Asian Americans face. And because they're ignored, this ridiculous cycle is allowed to continue. So no, not all Asian Americans are rich. And just
Thank you.
because some are,
Thanks for that
doesn't
wake-up
mean
call.
we get to pretend like racial, gender, and economic disparities don't exist. Sorry, not sorry. Special thanks to Lily Dew for helping out this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Decoded.
Painful. I'm impressed. Pause it. I'm impressed with myself that I made it through that episode of Decoded. And the basic gist of it is, I know that you've noticed these patterns, and I know they're factually true. I also have noticed that they're positive patterns you've noticed. But don't notice them because they make anecdotal evidence feel uncomfortable. Okay, so be less smart and learn less things. Got it.
We will make America great again.